Yo, yo, yo. I'm just gonna let a couple people join in. I'm gonna grab some water. Go grab yourself some water. Stay hydrated, wolves. I'll be right back. Alright, let me know if you could hear me. I am wishing everyone a beautiful day. Hopefully everyone is having a relaxing week. Heading into that weekend. Don't get weakened. Looks like we got about 120 people. Let's let some more people jump in. Try to get to around 400, 500 people tonight. Let me know if you guys got notifications. Go ahead and share this live stream link with like-minded, high vibrational beings such as yourself. We're just gonna hang out tonight, take it easy, explore, hand out some clear pills. Great. I almost didn't do this live stream this week, but decided to clear out some time in my schedule and make it happen. I'm glad to be hanging out with you guys tonight. Okay, apparently the sound is good. People are getting notifications. Lower down this brightness on my screen. I don't know if you guys have messed around with blue blocker kind of tech. There's some software out there. I'm trying to test some stuff out. So far I've found Iris is a really good, but I haven't committed to it yet, but definitely much better on the eyes for those of you that are day traders or you're spending a lot of time studying charts, or even if you work online, you work from home, you're using your computer quite a bit. Definitely recommend putting on some sort of night mode on your computer when necessary. I don't like the glasses. I think any glasses are going to be kind of an issue eventually over time. Your eyes are designed to just work naturally. But with that being said, it is definitely something that I've noticed helps quite a bit, just being able to turn off that blue light. So how's everyone doing tonight? I hope you're all well. I'm feeling good, personally. I've had a great week, been very productive, making a lot of music, keeping the creative energy flowing, meditating when necessary, staying balanced. Just waiting for some more people to get in, say hi to some people while we're letting those notifications go out. Brooke Law, appreciate you. Mr. Jansen, as always. Shout out to the Wolfpack over in the Netherlands. I love every single one of you. It's amazing how, for some reason, got a lot of people in our community from the Netherlands, and they're amazing. So shout out to all of y'all. I'm in the States, so my channel is predominantly focused towards, and this has nothing to do with me personally. I can't control this, but of course I'm speaking English, and the YouTube algorithm's going to push the channel towards people in the States, but getting a lot of people from the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany have been following along, joining the community, and sending lots of love. So really appreciate every single one of you. And of course, to not leave anyone out, I mean, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, definitely the Wolfpack growing over there as well. But I'm always blown away. Like once a week, I get somebody who reaches out to me. They're like, "Hey Jordan, I bought your mastermind course," and they're like, "I'm from Rwanda," and I'm like, "What?" Like it blows my mind every time. It's at least once a week I get somebody that's from a place that I would have never imagined. I would have, not to say like, this is 100% like the most loving thing that happens to me when I'm just blindsided by somebody in Ethiopia that reaches out to me and just shares some of their words of love and gratitude. So it's beautiful. This internet thing, as some people have quite a lot of negative things to say about it, but it's beautiful that us creative people in this world, we can have an ability to spread our truths and, reach out to people all around the world. And that in and of itself is like a ripple effect. It could expand and allow, just the growth of our world. And I say that specifically because what we're seeing is like a time like the past 2 years in particular. There's been a lot of division, and a lot of people are suffering from that division. And when some people choose to suffer, what happens to them is they get into those lower vibrational frequencies and it consumes them. And hopefully, what we're doing here is attracting like minded people, but also helping people remember a power that they have, a strength that they have, which is the ability to tap into infinite consciousness. And with this ability comes the power to help and to enlighten those around you. I mean, it's hard to determine whether we're programmed this way, whether we're born with these cards, and, some of us just have that capability and some don't. I'm not here to pass judgment on that. I've had my experience in life. I've seen people that were the least likely to kind of like snap into it, eventually figure it out. And there's a beautiful thing in that. And I've noticed that it takes a very strong individual to get to that place. But I have a little thing that I want to share with everyone once we get a little bit more people in here. Wait till we get about 200, 250 people maybe, and we'll start diving a little bit deeper into this. Because I feel like it aligns with what I was just saying. It really does. And it's eye-opening. And it's a thing that we've spoken about maybe since day one, actually. Probably something we've talked about this whole time, which is whatever the agenda is on the world stage, whether that be medical martial law or food shortages or power outages or war or displacement of particular nationalities or whatever. I mean, we live in like this matrix that we live in, this physical realm that we're trapped in, because we're in a very tiny piece of this physical realm, guys. There is much, much more that we are not able to go see for ourselves. We know this as fact, because if you wanted to go to Melbourne, Australia and hop in a boat, your own boat, and just get into the water and just keep sailing your boat, eventually there will be military that stops you and says, "What the fuck are you doing? You can't go there." And you will turn around and go back to where you came from, because this realm isn't yours. There's no actual freedom of exploration here. It's like we're puppies in a playpen, and we get to have access to what the overlords would like us to have access to. And perhaps this is the lowest vibrational part of the realm, and this is why they keep us here. But some of us are impossible to parasite. It's like we came to this matrix with antivirus software. And that ability makes it so that we could open up our eyes to these very basic things. We start to question that. We start to question what's going on here. And throughout this seeking of freedom, if you will, of course we want freedom of the vessel, but that doesn't happen while you're here. This mortality that we're all sort of trapped in, we have to do our best while we're here, borrowing this rental vehicle we call a body. And this is where we get to the deep stories about, the quote unquote Messiah, because all Messiah actually is you realizing your awakening. And I know that a lot of people are going to take that out of context, and a lot of people are going to take that and just like freak out. But I believe we've gotten to a place with this community where we could speak like this and no one's taking it personally anymore. And if you are taking it personally, that's because you've allowed yourself to be indoctrinated into some other groupthink. And in this groupthink, you become part of the shape and the physicality of that trap. Once it becomes plasmatized and physical, you no longer have that expansion. You no longer have that ability to roam freely through the idea. So when an individual wakes up to who he or she really is, which is a god or goddess within, you start to see that this whole reality that we know of, that we call reality, there'll be these moments of epiphanies, if you will. These epiphanies where you ask yourself these very basic things, and you just say to yourself, like, oh man, everything that I was taught, it is the complete opposite. Everything is like a mirror in a sense. And if they tell you that we're about to have, global warming, what that really means is we're about to have an ice age. It's always the opposite. And I'm just giving a very basic example. I'm not saying 100% that is what will happen. I'm just basically trying to make it as simple as possible and say, if they say go left, you should probably start going right. It's always the opposite. It's the same thing with all the history we were taught. Again, it's called his story. It's a problem there. A story is merely what gets passed on through verbal tradition, and it's the word of the winner, but it's not the truth. Whoever wins at the end of the day gets to write the script. That's why it's called scripture. So whilst we're contemplating these ideas, contemplating our realm, contemplating all the things that are going on as above and so below, we start to see that, well, we're surrounded by a bunch of beings. And if only we can tap into their power, and of course that starts within, imagine how immense the change would be in this matrix. So you notice in the Matrix movie, in the third Matrix particularly, you essentially find out at the very end that Agent Smith is Neo. It's his shadow. It's his mirror image. It's like the devil and God kind of idea. They're one and the same. They need each other for perpetual balance. Because without the other, it won't be balanced anymore. So we need a creator and a destroyer. And this is where we get Shiva. And, this isn't isolated. It is within every single culture, going back to, known. Anyway, the purpose of where this is all going is that we start to see that every single big paradigm shift in our reality is based around dividing the people. That's really where I wanted to go with this idea. Where I want to keep returning to as well, because I'm seeing it happen in every crevice of every community, in every, in all of groupthink. We start to see that it has its cycle, like almost like a market, right? It goes up and then it goes down. And whilst it's going down, it's like we're all trying to figure out where to position ourselves. And if we would stop perceiving it that way and start perceiving it as all things start with self, then we could have a much better, map or blueprint of what's going on here. And you get that cliche, like, love yourself, right? I think about that all the time because so many people say it, but you could tell this to anyone, and no matter where they are in their journey, whether they are extremely blissful and neutral or if they're completely depressed and anxious and suicidal, that is like the last thing that anyone wants to hear because it's so simple, right? But instead of loving yourself, how about you figure out who self is in the first place? Like, who is that individual? Who's self? And we ask ourselves every time we interact with another being, we don't identify that as an extension of self. We say your name is so and so and you're a female and you're this years old, and because of your age compared to mine and because of the way that you look compared to the way I look, and etc. And then we create this entire perception, and that's how we communicate, you know? We make it like a puzzle. But in reality, there is no puzzle because we're all an extension of each other. That's where the simplicity lies. And that's what's so interesting about division. Once we start to realize who self is, and then we can actually look at another being as an extension of self. And when I say this, I'm not talking about just humans, I'm talking about all sentience. You see that there's a light that goes off where compassion and understanding and just all this beauty actually shows itself for once. Because instead of the judgment and this vampirism that comes with the seeking of attention and the seeking of division simultaneously, this individual's fangs are so sharp and ready for blood that all it seeks is to be the one that prevails at the end. We notice the energy there and how, yes, that individual might win. They might come out on top. But all you'll have is that gold medal, and you'll be surrounded by no one. We want acceptance. We want attention. We want to be validated. But in that journey, we can get there together. We could realize our ego. We could realize it. And just to be able to come to terms with that for a single moment, to humble oneself to noticing where we're being unbalanced. That's an immense power to have. We need a cascade through that whole cycle to seek this neutral point, to seek that neutrality, that balance. We're all walking on a tightrope, and what's beneath our feet is the hell that we've been indoctrinated into believing is beneath our feet, and the heaven is above our heads. That is what we're told. But as we graduate through the rungs of consciousness, you start to see that the heaven and hell is actually within you. You cultivate all of those titles and identities, and you believe in them so much that you get happy when you're in heaven, and you start to become self-absorbed and deconstructed when you enter the gates of hell. You notice that it wasn't a place you were before, and it will never be a place you'll go after. It's part of the existence that you choose. And to use the word choose or choice very, very carefully, with immense intent. We ask for all of our successes. We ask for all of our failures. And if we don't think we do, when we're faced with that failure or faced with that success, we at least have the choice of how we will react to either of those things. So if the cards you were dealt in your hand are shitty, embrace that. You get to choose. And in embracing that, you actually get to take personal responsibility. I would much rather fail on my own accord and learn from that lesson than to fail and start pointing fingers. And the same thing goes for our successes. But it's the path towards that success or the path towards that failure or away from that success or failure, because it goes both ways, right? We could look at it as such if we would like. It's like the alpha and omega. It's a cycle. Once we accomplish one thing, we seek the next thing. And in the path towards that next avenue that we seek, we're probably going to trip a couple times. We're probably going to get lost. We're probably going to, fall onto the beaten path. The thing that I've noticed that brings me the most bliss in my life is allowing the path, not worrying about the outcome. When we're on that path and we're realizing the steps that we take during that path, we start to see that's what's attracting all of those little micro outcomes along the way towards the bigger manifestation, if you will. All right. We got about 300 people in here. I appreciate all of y'all for showing up. Wishing you a beautiful Friday or Saturday if you're over there in Australia. I'm going to say hi to a couple people and then let's move over to this image that I just got sent today. Matt Quigg, sending you love, brother. Scott Bryce, sending you lots of love. Dustin, appreciate you. Arsenal, doing incredible and wishing you the same. Just gonna take a sip of some water real quick. Patriot Eagle, sending you lots of love. Danny over in Bavaria. I love that area of Germany. It's one of my favorites. I could probably live in maybe the outskirts of Munich easily. I'm a big fan of German beer. That's funny as hell. Dustin said I'm gonna grab some water when I'm talking with people and the vibe isn't there. You don't know how many times I've done that. That happens to me so, like, whenever I'm in public and I'm dealing with a discussion, it is very rare where I'm able to actually maintain homeostasis during the, I'm always chill, but, what people want to talk about it's really blood-sucking stuff. It's like people want to talk about politics and yeah, I can't. I really can't. It's a very good moment to say, I'm going to go grab some water real quick. AKA, I'm leaving. Jason Marin says, haven't missed a live or video since I found your channel through Warrior Academy. Much love. Appreciate you. I appreciate Coach JV and 3T Warrior Academy. I'm looking forward to that Great Awakening collab that me and him are going to be doing. I think it's going to be fire. It's going to be really amazing to share some of these, stories, personal stories, and also just tools of the trade. And, I feel like humanity really needs these sorts of breakdowns. So excited to do that collab for sure. Medina says, what documentaries do you recommend? Well, on the last live stream, on most of my live streams, I really just keep recommending everyone to check out Europa: The Last Battle. That's just mind-blowing. Everyone should check that out. I don't really love watching lots of documentaries because most of them are completely just nonsense. It's really difficult to find solid, not like the narrative's version of history, or the narrative's version of anything for that matter. And most of the great, like really artistic filmmakers have just been silenced and their art gets shoved to the side, and it's quite sad. But when it comes to movies, or just my favorite movies in general, the movie Gummo, that movie changed my life. When I first saw that, I never knew what it felt like to be like really uncomfortable while watching cinema. And the type of person that I am, the type of alien that I am, like whenever I'm consuming anything in life, I want it to evoke something that I've never felt before. And that's what I love about music. That's what I just love about all things art, really. Like when I'm in the midst of it, if it could bring me emotion and true emotion and make me feel something I've never felt before, that to me is where it clicks. And so a lot of movies fail to do that for me because, again, a lot of them are just, they want to like, they have such a repeatable, mundane sequence to them. And now when it comes to most movies, I just see them as predictive programming. And you can find a ton of truth in basic Hollywood movies and also in lots of popular documentaries as well. The truth is hidden in plain sight, of course. But yeah. So anything by Harmony Korine, it's probably one of my favorite filmmakers. He did a lot of stuff with Larry Clark. But as for documentaries, it's really just Europa. That's like the one that really changed my whole perspective. And I would love if they made a documentary about the Native Americans in America and the, kind of the false history of the transatlantic slave trade. So I assume perhaps Dane Calloway has come out with somewhat of a documentary series on that. If he has, you guys can let me know and I'll probably check that out because I think Dane Calloway's work is incredible. But that's another one of those very emotional things where like people just cannot accept that piece of history could possibly be, manipulated into a narrative that is 90% lies, and the 10% truth about it was also heavily, stretched from its, context. So it's basically just a lie. And again, it's very emotional for people. The same thing with Europa. Like when people watch Europa, they always respond back to me like, fuck, what did I just watch? I can't believe it. Like, yada, yada, yada. And I get it. I get that because the truth sucks. Like, the truth is a very difficult pill to swallow. But, hey. It is what it is. I mean, a lot of Hollywood clones have broken out of their MK Ultra, and they've even exposed a lot of these truths. And the mainstream media just writes them off as drug addict, people going through an episode. But actually what they're doing is they're exposing. And that's the whole psyop behind mental health, the push of it in... It's the same thing with plastic surgery. Like, if you guys pay attention to the way they leveraged all this plastic surgery shit that they do, mixed with all the mental health problems, quote unquote, in these particular famous celebrity influencers, they're doing it, and it's a very, very multifaceted agenda that they have. But one of it is to cover up the cloning that they're doing, and the other part of it is to cover up the fact that they go through an immense amount of reprogramming. And one of the bases behind Scientology and why that's become quite a popular cult is to, again, have something that they could just point a finger at and laugh at and make seeming negative. But in reality, the entire political structure, all the globalists, all these, royalty, they are going through the same programming. And this programming was implemented back in literally the ancient Egyptian mystery schools. And it was being, recovered and reutilized by the Theosophical Society. And a lot of what the Vril Society was doing and what was going on in Nazi Germany, it was to figure out how to essentially program people's minds and create a zombie person. And that's essentially where the vaccine agenda and all the other things start coming into play. Because our consciousness is very complicated. And the more and more and more they could essentially create a cyborg person, this type of being is the perfect clean slate to push agendas decade after decade and cement the success of the agenda that they push. So when we see the way that the world reacted to the C word, 19, it starts to make sense now how they got away with it. They got away with it because we're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of manipulating the psyche. And using that word manipulation, it's almost seemingly like, it's actually not even fair. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. It's influence, and people are easily influenced. And some people, like I said in the very, very beginning of this live stream, we came to this realm with antivirus software. Like when I was super young, you couldn't brainwash me. It was fucking impossible. They tried so hard. My teachers tried, everyone tried. It was impossible. They hated me for it because every time they tried indoctrinating me, I instantly knew that it was bullshit. So quick. I stopped standing during the Pledge of Allegiance when I was like 7 years old. I knew that this was all a scam. And that broke people's hearts because they were like, oh my God, he's not a clone. He's not an NPC. And that really gets to people. And I'm sure a lot of you who are tuning into this right now, that is your life as well. Like you came here to this realm and none of it made sense because you're not supposed to be here in the first place. This is not your place. This physical journey is a tiny blink. It is a fucking grain of sand in an immense experience. And the reason none of that indoctrination made sense to you is because you came to this place remembering where you were before. So none of what's happening here is you. Like I know it's like for some people this is hard to accept. But the reason why a lot of this shit doesn't add up and you could see the deceit and the issues with it is because it's not for you. It's for them. And you know who I'm talking about. So a vast majority is very easy to influence, and they love being influenced. This is why in the last Matrix movie that came out during the time where they're speaking with the, I forgot his name, but he basically Keanu Reeves and Trinity, they're talking to this guy. I forgot his name, but he's able to like slow down time, and you guys will probably remember who this individual is. Doesn't really matter, but the point in that is it's at the very end, and he essentially says to Neo and Trinity that the regular people love the blue pill. They love this Matrix. They love it because they're from it. This is their experience. I know that hurts a lot of people, but it just is what it is. Like, this was for them. You came here to experience this just to taste what it's like. And the way you react to that experience is what will get you out of here as fast as possible. Like, there's a huge reason why a lot of high-level yogis don't even live past the age of 35. Their vibrational state is way too high to be stuck in this body, in this matrix. So you're here to do some work, is what I'm trying to say. You're here on a mission. And in that mission, be great. Be the best you can ever be. And when you stop worrying about all the other shit that's going on in the background, like Will Smith and all this fucking bullshit, like when you stop paying attention to that stuff and you start focusing on yourself, you're going to see that you're going to unlock that energy, that power that you've channeled in. And you're going to start remembering where you were before you got here. And you're going to remember all the skills, all the talent, all the brilliance that you actually have always had. It wasn't taken from you. It's here now. But you have to remember that. It's just amnesia. That's what we're all experiencing. So think about that story that I was saying when I was super, super young here in this matrix. 5, 6, 7 years old. I didn't have any energy for that standing for the fucking Pledge of Allegiance bullshit. I already knew that there was people going and invading countries with no standing military, raping and pillaging, stealing all their resources. And I'm saying to my teacher, you want me to fucking stand for a flag that has enslaved, killed, murdered, destroyed, pillaged, and worse, destroyed Mother Nature? Are you kidding me? I was like 7, 8 years old. I was impossible to brainwash. It couldn't happen. I mean, it eventually had to get spicy. You guys know how these live streams get. But I feel like that's a point that needs to be brought up. Because a lot of people reach out to me. A lot of people come to work with me directly. And they're like, yo, I'm listening to what you're saying and it's vibing with me and I feel it. And that's the number one thing I respond with. I say, well, because this language we're talking, this vibrational frequency that we're speaking in, is like a extraterrestrial language. It's English, but it's costumed in English. But this is channeled in and it's going through the heart. This isn't the words of the mind. The mind is all about facts and the theories and science, and it's scientism actually. That's what it is. But when you get out of your mind and go into your heart, you start realizing a lot more than you ever did before. Just going to read through a couple more. Okay, we got about 360 people up in here. Love all of y'all. Let's get to this. Let's pause this for a second. Somebody sent this to me today. Enlightened Dad, I appreciate you. Much love. I'm doing good. Love money. Ian, appreciate you showing up, brother. Sybil, sending you lots of love. Liberty Prime, appreciate you, brother. Dow. Just gonna get through some of these. Yo, Rudolf Steiner was cold, man. All right, I'm just making through some of the comments, and then we're gonna move on. I got a lot of love for you guys. This is going to be, I mean, let's just start off with this, all right? This is allegedly a quote from Rudolf Steiner. I am not saying that I could 100% authenticate that this was said. I'll just start with that. But it doesn't even matter, actually, because what does matter is the composition of what's being said here and how it was broken down. And it's something we've actually spoken about on a live stream in the past, and it's a little bit talking about what we've been, kind of just vibing on today so far. So I'm going to read through this. I'll stop where appropriate, and then we'll kind of discuss a little further. So, as you can see at the top, it says eliminate the soul with medicine. Okay, so let's just quickly figure out like what's going on here. So, soul, like sun, SOL. We call the soul, SOUL. We're aware of this. And then soul on our feet, SOLE. This is where grounding comes into play. Walking barefoot with Mother Nature, right? As you know, the earth is Gaia. It is it's a divine feminine energy. So this word soul is always something that I think much more deeper on than I ever did before, just when you start identifying the word spells and how the words are being used, right? So it says here, in the future. So it says future, and this guy was alive during 1861 to 1925. This, I believe, is factual, his life span. Again, you hear the language I'm choosing. I'm saying that I do not have the ability to authenticate where this quote has come from. I just got shared this. I read through it, and for me, it's just pretty amazing because it's stuff that I've literally said out my mouth. And that was why someone sent it to me, because they were like, Jordan, I feel like I've heard you say pretty much like 3 or 4 things within this. And have you ever looked at this before? And I was like, no, I don't even know what's going on here. So this is really beautiful because it was sent to me this morning, and I wasn't going to do a live stream, as I said before. But this was one of the motivating factors why I decided to do the live stream. So it says, in the future, we will eliminate the soul with medicine under the pretext of a healthy point of view, in quotes. So under the pretext of a healthy point of view, sound like something we just experienced? It says there will be a vaccine. I should probably I'll just say V, okay? I'm going to say V because you know how triggered it gets. And if you're triggered by this, please go away. Like, your energy is not welcome here. I'm not trying to be spicy. I'm just saying, like, this is meant for, like, clear pill energy only. Okay? So it says, under the pretext of a healthy point of view, there will be a V by which the human body will be treated as soon as possible directly at birth, so that the human being cannot develop the thought of the existence of soul and spirit. I'll say that again, because that is a lot to take in. Under the pretext of a healthy point of view, there will be a V by which the human body will be treated as soon as possible directly at birth, so that the human being cannot develop the thought of the existence of soul and spirit. To materialistic doctors, we will be entrusted the task of removing the soul of humanity. As today, people are V, against the disease or that disease. So in the future, children will be V with a substance that can be produced precisely in such a way that people, thanks to this V, will be immune to being subject to the madness of spiritual life. And this is very, very well written, right? Because, like I said earlier, whilst we're awakening to the fact that this physical existence is just a small little blip of our overall journey, that could become very dark for us. It becomes almost a mania. Like, there's some madness that could set in because you're thinking to yourself, okay, I've tapped in with a higher vibrational frequency. I am able to channel in ideas without reading books anymore. I could just literally look up at the sun or look up at the moon. I can do my mudras. I could do my yoga. I could do my pranayama. And I start to just learn everything because the Akashic records are within you. Light is life. Energy is everything. Everything is energy and frequency. You are a ball of light and you're trapped in this body. And when you wake up to that fact, there could be some madness in the realization of spiritual life. So just to quickly recap, he says, thanks to this V, they will be immune to being subject to the madness of spiritual life. Meaning a normal, I don't say this to be disrespectful, but we just have to be direct here. The average person waking up will destroy them. So it's almost like there is a mechanism in place to keep them from that. Because if they were to wake up, they would not be able to behave correctly. And the entire agenda and goal for the human species is to behave. Just to go to work, do your job, shut up, be a member of this slave race. And if you speak out of turn, we have the every mechanism in place to make you sound like you're crazy. We'll call you a tinfoil hat, a conspiracy theorist, a flat earther, or whatever the fuck, right? So the entire agenda is to keep people immune to being subject to the madness of spiritual life. This is very poetically written. Now he says after this, he would be so the person who got the V would be extremely smart, but he would not develop a conscience. And that is the true goal of some materialistic circles. What he means by these materialistic circles is predominantly the Jesuit order and these globalists. Their entire agenda is to is to essentially cement you in this physical trap forever. So you do not wake up to the spiritual past, which wasn't a past anyways. It was just part of the overall cycle of energy. But with that being said, you will not remember where you were before you chose to be here in this physical realm, and you will not have any connection to escaping it at all. Think of it like a soul trap, okay? Have you heard this term soul trap? That's exactly what he's explaining. So he says that the individual who gets the V would be extremely smart. And this is true because you can have the best grades. You could, become a doctor. You could have all of this stuff in life, all these accolades, the diploma. You could graduate magna cum laude or whatever the fuck, right? But you'll be extremely smart. But he would not develop a conscience. And that is the true goal of some materialistic circles. The materialistic circles they're talking about in today's day and age is predominantly the Jesuit order. And this parasite of the Jesuit order, the Society of Jesus, has implemented this kind of, backbone and structure that's been taught, throughout time immemorial. And I'm sure you guys could go figure all that out on your own because that's a whole other... yeah. So he says, with such a V, you can easily make the etheric body lose the physical body. Okay, so I'll just recap that whole statement. This individual who got the V would be extremely smart, but he would not develop a conscience. And that is the true goal of some materialistic circles. With such a V, you can easily make the etheric body loose in the physical body. Once the etheric body is detached, the relationship between the universe and the etheric body would become extremely unstable, and man would become an automaton, for the physical body of man must be polished on this earth by spiritual will. He's saying that you will become a fucking zombie. He finishes this up with saying, so the V becomes a kind of Our manic force, man can no longer get rid of a materialistic feeling. He becomes materialistic of constitution and can no longer rise to the spiritual. Mamma mia. I mean, like, does it get crazier than this? Like, just fucking mic drop. I mean, this is insane. I'll reread this whole statement in one go, and we'll move on from there. I'm sure you guys have some interesting thoughts to share. So this is from Rudolf Steiner. Says, in the future, we will eliminate the soul with medicine. Under the pretext of a healthy point of view, there will be a V by which the human body will be treated as soon as possible directly at birth, so that the human being cannot develop the thought of existence of soul and spirit. To materialistic doctors will be entrusted the task of removing the soul of humanity. As today, people are V against this disease or that disease. So in the future, children will be V with a substance that can be produced precisely in such a way that people, thanks to this V, will be immune to being subject to the madness of spiritual life. He would be extremely smart, but he would not develop a conscience, and that is the true goal of some materialistic circles. With such a V, you can easily make the etheric body loose in the physical body. Once the etheric body is detached, the relationship between the universe and the etheric body would become extremely unstable, and man would become an automaton. For the physical body of man must be polished on the earth by spiritual will. So the V becomes a kind of Ahrimanic force. Man can no longer get rid of a given materialistic feeling. He becomes materialistic of constitution and can no longer rise to the spiritual. Rudolf Steiner, 1861 to 1925. This man died almost 100 years ago. Wow. So now you could understand a little bit of the reasoning behind why medicine and the entire pharmaceutical industry, they use this Caduceus and this symbolism of Hermes, right? It's done on purpose. And this is where we get the logo of the United Nations and a lot of these other globalist organizations. Because Mercury is Hermes. Mercury is the voice between the mortals and the gods. This has everything to do with Quicksilver. And once we start learning a little bit more about alchemy and seeing how this all fits in, we really see why this agenda of trapping the soul into this belief of a physical and materialistic existence is the overall agenda of the ruling class. This apex predator that runs this domain, absolutely incredible influence they have with getting people so obsessed with their mortality, so obsessed with this desire to never die. And this is where transhumanism comes into play, because they will sell onto a soulless individual that all you need to do is move into a virtual realm and you could live there forever without any disease, with no problems whatsoever. If you can't get a girlfriend, don't worry. We have a virtual reality girlfriend for you. If you're running out of food, don't worry. We have some virtual reality food for you. There will be a solution with every single problem that showed up in this physical world, even though they sold you on this physical world first, because it's a cycle they're trying to catch you in. There is a virtual within a virtual within a virtual, like a Russian doll. And those of you that are listening to this, you most likely know exactly what I'm talking about. You feel it in your soul, and that is why every single time they present to you one of these psyops, you instantaneously, like, you sneeze. You're like allergic to it. You're like, ugh, what are you saying to me? You want me to put a mask on? What are you saying to me? Like, when people speak normal to me, I'm like, I don't even understand what you're talking about. It's like a different language because it's the language of the mind, not the language of the heart. The language of the heart speaks a very, very different language. Sure, the costume of it is English. And if you're somebody in Germany, the costume of it is German. But we here speak a much, much different true language. And this is what they are trying to separate. It's a huge global order. And it's working so well through the influence of getting people so caught up in this physical, materialistic existence. And when we talk materialism, I'm not just talking about cars and like having a nice watch. That's really bullshit. I'm talking about the body itself. This desire to never want to die. And then you have to think they name the name of the day is die. Day, die. It's the same thing. Because when you go to sleep at night, you die. And you wake back up in the morning. And that's why they call it wake. Because what happens when someone passes away? You go to a wake, a funeral. And what are you doing when you're there? You're mourning over them because you're sad. So that's why they call it waking up in the morning. They are doing everything they possibly can to spellcast you into thinking that this is life. That's the materialism we're talking about here. That's the materialism that Rudolf Steiner was talking about in all of this. Absolutely incredible set of paragraphs for everyone to read. And if you don't have, maybe if you're someone who's from another country and you're tuning into this and maybe some of these words you're uncertain of, you could just probably go ahead and type in Rudolf Steiner, eliminate the soul with medicine into Google, and you will find this quote written out, and you could just copy and paste it into Google Translate. I highly recommend you check it out. If some of this is confusing to you, I do completely understand that there's a lot of people around the world who are watching my work. Sometimes some of these things might not make full sense until they translate it. So I really urge you to go out of your way to translate all this, because this is mind-blowing stuff. And again, I know this stuff is unpopular. I know that exposing this and speaking about this is going to get a lot of people angry, but that's not what this is about. This isn't about getting people to like you. This is about changing the world. This is about helping humanity wake up. This is 10 times more important than your crypto charts and your fucking portfolios and all the bullshit that's going on with the SEC. None of that fucking shit matters. We're like on the cusp of seeing a vibrational consciousness shift. And we're living through it. Like, this is the craziest time to be alive if you think about it. We get to watch this all unfold. I mean, one of my personal things that I'm feeling will change is the magnetism is going to start to change. The magnetism is changing. We're going to start experiencing plasma discharges out of Earth, and this realm is going to start changing tremendously. And during this time where the realm changes, the apex predator ruling class will do anything they possibly can to keep you in fear, to make you scared of how this transition will go. Excuse me. So, I mean, can people share some more of this guy's work with me? I mean, go for it if you can. Apparently, he was an architect, right? Which is really interesting too, because that comes back to the Masons, the stone Masons. They were the architects. They're also the architects of our realm. They're the architects of our indoctrination systems. That is the way that they are organizing this influence and dominating over all through mind control. Because they are the architects, they're the stewards of our matrix, if you think of it that way. The stone masons. That's why when you graduate, you see that they're wearing this hat, this like flat hat. That's all like carpenter shit. And it's really interesting how they say that Jesus was a carpenter when he was a child prodigy. I love when they say stuff like that. Anyways, let's move on to some of your guys' questions. Got about 460 people up in here. David says, I was born in a fam of serpents, all to keep me from stepping into my identity and my position. Exactly. And that's a lot of us. A lot of us have to deal with that in our experience. Those are the agents. And we're always kind of like, facing those individuals at every step of our journey. But just remember, like anyone who has an agent in their life, you're going to have a couple agents, but you're always going to have a final boss. You know what I mean? Like when you're playing a video game, the reason they set up a video game the way they do, where like you have a bunch of like little bosses and then you have the levels of the game and then finally you make it to the final boss. The reason they set it up that way is because that's how life works. Right? And what's crazy about it is all those little bosses that you're dealing with are like the apostles. They're like the zodiac. They're just part of the cycle that you're moving into. Through this cycle, you're dealing with these trials and tribulations. And then when you get to that final boss, that final really big, problem in your life, that trauma, whatever it is, it could have been something really, really heinous. I mean, again, at the end of the day, it's up to you how you face it. It's up to you how you react to it. You get to react with love and compassion to the worst things that have ever happened to you. And that is letting go. When you finally let go, you see that the divinity lies on the other side of that. Oh man, what I'm saying right now is reminding me so much of a movie about magic. It's like the greatest film ever about magic. And now that I'm thinking about it, and somebody asked me earlier about really good documentary, this is just a really good movie. I think it's Irish. I believe it's an Irish film, and it's about ritual magic, and it's like one of the most incredible movies of all time. And I don't want to give a spoiler, but if anyone could bring up the name of that movie while we're in the live stream, and if like Jody or somebody could just tag me and let me know the name of that movie, I'll say it. And I really would love for all of you guys to check out that movie. Wow, it's amazing. It's this movie about this woman, and she finds on the internet some sort of high level practicing magi, and he knows, like he studies Aleister Crowley, he studies the craft, you know what I'm saying? And she seeks him out because she wants to, do something crazy. She wants to do something with this magic stuff, and it's not a joke. Like we're not talking about casting a money spell. Like we're talking about some deep shit. And by the way, you could cast money spells if you want. If you want to play around with the spiritual realm, go for it. But I'm just gonna let you know right now, those of you that are fucking around with tarot and fucking around with all that stuff, yes, I'm saying fucking around, because a lot of you need to learn how energy actually works. When you mess around with the spirit realm for really low level bullshit, like wondering where like certain charts are gonna go, or like that is really, really not what the spirit realm wants. It's like the people who pray to God for things. It's like, do you really think God cares about your stubbed toe that happened 15 minutes ago? Do you really think God cares about you getting an A on your math test? Like, if you're going to externalize and try to enter the spirit realm and work with it, guess what? The spirit realm doesn't give a shit about that low level nonsense. It's operating at the highest vibrational frequency. It can't even hold physical form. It is so fucking powerful that it can move the physical world. So what are you doing? It's like, I really hope that people wake up to that very basic thing, because a lot of people who become more enlightened, they start playing around with, with crystals and tarot and tantra and like all this stuff, and I am so open for it. Like, I love the fact that we're exploring this stuff, but please, please, please go back and try your best to read the original texts when they were discussing how to use these things properly, because you're fucking around with energy that you have no idea how to control. And when you invite or manifest, you're going to need to deal with the reaction and the consequences of what you're manifesting. So I'm just giving a warning to people, because a lot of people are waking up, and in this journey, we find a lot of these spiritual things sexy, where we're like, I want to do yoga now, and I want to do this. And it's like, okay, but you're saying you want to do yoga to get a big ass. You're saying you want to get into tarot because you want to know where Bitcoin's going next week. You're telling me that you're getting into crystals because you want to you want to get a better job. It's like, do you see what you're doing? You got to step back sometimes and ask yourself, like, am I trying to interact with Mother Nature and the spirit realm for the right reasons? Like, is this going to keep me on the path of neutrality and bliss? Or is this just me trying to become way more egotistical and caught up in materialism? Like, you can use all of that stuff for those independent reasons, but I'm just letting you know it has a reverberation effect that will start affecting other aspects of your life. So yes, you can use certain things to be able to figure out, what's going on, but then you don't know how the cause and effect is going to be. And when you really start to study the work of like Aleister Crowley and a lot of these like insane magicians of our past, the number one thing they knew how to do was trap the energy that they're working with so it doesn't spill out. Think of it like a glass. You fill up a glass with water, right? Your intent now is to drink that water, but that water is going to go other places after it's in you. Like, when you fuck around with the spirit realm, you're pouring water into the glass, you're drinking it, but after you drink it, it will go somewhere. And how do you know it will affect your life positively if you don't even know what you're doing in the first place? People are thinking like a checkers player, and what I'm telling you is think like a chess player. If you're going to get into all of this spiritual shit, just remember what I just said to you, because that's some real words of wisdom. It's not just about 1 + 1 = 2. There's a way larger math equation after it, because the spirit realm doesn't work in integers. It works in infinicy. It's vibration, right? When you start getting into yoga and mudras and all of these powerful practices, and you do it with an intent that brings you into the spirit realm where you were before, and not just to get muscular and be able to hold a handstand and to, when you actually figure out what's the purpose of the practice that you're doing, and it's to bring you back to that state of bliss and neutrality and living, because that's really what it ends up being. You feel like you're living for once, not existing. For those that are using these spiritual practices for low vibrational nonsense, it's to give your existence that slow drip of dopamine that you're going to get from when you go on Twitter and TikTok and all the other nonsense that we do with our lives. There's a really amazing quote that I read once, actually, from an incredible spiritual leader. And if I could find it during this live stream, I'll definitely bring it up. But it went according to a very similar thing that I just said. And it was mind-blowing to read because it was something that I felt for a while. And it was like a lot of people try to escape this matrix by testing out the spirit realm. And whilst they're testing out the spirit realm, they're doing it for the same reasons of the things that they wanted in the matrix. And it's like, well, do you see that is like a paradox? It's like, it's oxymoronic, actually. But who knows, right? Like, at the end of the day, some of us are here to unlock the power of within, and some of us are here to play with toys until we start, again, going back to the position where we learn from within. Because that's all that keeps happening. You see that the magic wand is already with you. Like, think about what I just said. The magic wand, it's attached to you, okay? I'll stop it there. All right. Yes, I will definitely post that Rudolf Steiner quote on Discord, for sure. Darius Murphu, hope I pronounced your name right. Sending you lots of love. Andrea Berry, appreciate you, love you. So Camilla Gomez is asking about the connection between the Caduceus and mythology. So that comes back to Hermes. The staff of Hermes has the Caduceus on it. That's where that comes from. And the globalist medical organization institutions have used this as their logo. And they also like using on their pill bottles the RX, and this R where like the leg of the R gets crossed out with the X. That's also a symbol for retrograde, which is going backwards. And that's pretty ironic, right? That all the pills you're getting are sending you backwards. They're not helping you, they're turning you the opposite direction. So yeah, anyways. That's one of those like mind-blowing things that a lot of people don't look into, but it's just symbolism that's placed right in front of us. So when we talk about the idea of a soul, there are many, many, many souls. Just like there's not only 7 chakras, there's many chakras. There's a chakra on each kneecap. There's a chakra on your elbows. There's a chakra on each finger. Okay, so when we're talking about chakras, we typically only talk about the classic ones that we're taught. And yes, those are absolutely immense energy stores, and they emit a lot of energy. But there's many, many more chakras, and it just takes an individual to, stepping a little bit deeper into their research to find out. But it's very simple, though. If you just practice mudras, you see the power of the hands. You see the power of each finger and each fingertip. You start seeing that this is how the energy circuit of the body works. And there's also a reason why the word circuit and serpent sound very similar, because that's literally all it's coming back to. The Ouroboros. The snake eating his own tail. That's the energy circuit, okay? And that energy circuit you have. And you could do that energy circuit with another person. And guess what? That's how babies are made. So everything is fucking electricity. And the electricity is carried through the waters. So when I made that statement before about we all have the magic wand, it wasn't it's a joke, but it's not. Like, we are the creators. Conversation. So yes, when we're talking about souls, there are many souls that one being can harbor. Just reading through some comments. It's also really funny when you think about the word brainwashed. Like, think about the word brainwashed for a second. Like, if we actually look deep into that word, you'll see that it kind of is what you want. Like, because water is the purifier, right? Water is the purification. So we want our brain washed so that we could fucking become enlightened. Like, I know that sounds counterintuitive, but like I'm going one layer deeper. I'm just showing you the words that the terms that they use. And I know I was using it before, but again, I'm using it in the popular context. But when we go a little bit deeper, we'll think about that. Like, what we actually want is to have the purification of all the things. And this is where alchemy comes into play. We talked about this in the last live stream. Those four major stages of alchemy and how they start at the stage of rot or decay, the negredo. So this being the first stage, and then of course all light comes through the darkness. So then we move into the second stage, which is albedo, the whitening, right? The lightening. And then from there, this white gets some contrast, some color to it. And naturally you get into the yellow, the yellowing, or the oranging. And that is where we enter citranitas. And then we have the final stage being rubedo, which has everything to do with timelessness and robbing the time of that last three stages we were just in. Because you are timeless, and you will go back to when you were timeless, and you will exit out as a timeless being. You go through the stages of alchemy in your mother's womb. This is why she's called the womb man. And that is the matrix. You go from spirit to the physical. This soul, many souls gets trapped into this being. This being of light now has to be carried in the mother's waters. And you get delivered by the dock man. We call him the doctor. He's the dock man. Just like the sea has the dock, where you pull up your ship at the port, right? This is a portal. The portal has to deal with, and then we could just keep going, right? So this is all about the waters, the electricity. It's magic. It's alchemy. It's the process of turning nothing into the manifested reality of that we have today. It's the same thing when it comes to how all other things are created. We have thoughts. We think these thoughts. The thought is Thoth, okay? And who is Thoth? It's Mercury. It's Hermes. So just like we were talking before about Caduceus and this connection to Mercury, Quicksilver, and all this other stuff. And again, when we're talking about the financial side of it, which I already go over in my YouTube videos, and we don't have to go there. But when we're talking about the Mercury, this has to deal with merchandise. This has to deal with merch, commerce. That's where we get the word merch and commerce from. It's Mercury. All right. And Quicksilver can be used to actually create gold. So again, that is currency, right? So think about what Mercury's job is. Mercury is the voice between the mortals and the gods. And he, as Quicksilver, it is his job to mine your gold. Your gold is your sun, your soul. S-O-L. Mercury will mine your soul if you let him. And then he gives it to the other gods to play around with. And you allow that. So this process that we're experiencing, that's why the Caduceus, or the logo of Hermes, is the logo of the medical industry. Because just like Rudolf Steiner says, it is their goal to eliminate the soul with medicine. And think about what this word has within it, Medici. But anyways, this is all Mercury wizardry. And this goes back to Thoth. And just to talk about manifestation, Thoth is our thoughts. And our thoughts can be nothing, just purely air. We don't even have a measurement for thoughts. But our thoughts create all the things that happen in the physical realm. Someone had to have a thought of how to make this laptop I'm using right now, and the microphone I'm speaking out of, and the wiring to connect it all together, and the wiring to be able to plug this in to keep it powered so that I could do this live stream for fucking 10 days straight if I wanted to. But if I unplugged it now, the lithium ion battery will run out, and then this live stream will get cut off once the battery dies. All of that required thoughts. So this can go super deep because it's all just a product of the experience. And there's alchemists who are bringing these thoughts into reality. They are turning lead into gold. Okay? But to get back into that deeper concept that we were talking about behind Mercury, and how Quicksilver, which is Mercury, is being used for the process of extracting gold, this has everything to do with this experience here in the physical realm, because we have a currency tied to us at birth. This is the purpose of the birth certificate and the social security number and tax identification systems. Right? Also, whenever you see an X, whenever you're seeing an X, that cross, that's another huge symbolism in a lot of the things that I speak about. So definitely there's some immense symbology there in the cross or the X. And there's even the word axe in it. And we know what axes are used for: chopping down, building. So someone, I think it was Callum. Firstly, Callum, sending you lots of love. Callum mentioned something about Rudolf Steiner not being like, I don't know. I don't really know what this individual said because it passed by quite quick. But yeah, Callum, remember what I said before I got going on all of this? All I said was I'm not sure if this was Rudolf Steiner's quote. I can't, I was very, very transparent. I don't even care if those words came from Rudolf Steiner. What's magnificent about the information is that it is a concept that we've spoken about before, and it's an idea that many, many great thinkers have discussed. The purpose of the medical institutions and the religious institutions and the pharmaceutical, and how all of it collides into this apex of globalist control. How one of the biggest and most fundamental power hierarchical, beasts in this beast system is the system of mandatory medical practice and mandatory education systems, which are, again, indoctrination. So anyone forcing anything upon another individual proves that it lacks freedom. So when they say you're born in the land of the free, home of the brave, whatever the fuck, what they're really saying is, we're going to stamp you, brand you, put a fucking, a number on you, turn you into cattle, like a product, and then give you the false ideology of freedom. And throughout this whole existence, we're going to sell onto you ways of assuming that you also have freedom. And you'll be able to have whatever you want. Like, you don't have any money, you want a house, here's your mortgage. Like, you are overeating, you're sick, you've gotten diabetes, here's your insulin. It's not a methodology of helping you to reverse your problem. It's a methodology to keep you sick, to keep you mentally incapacitated from progress. Therefore, there was never freedom to begin with. It was the illusion of it. And that illusion you get to decide to break free from simply by realizing the illusion. When you realize that illusion, you could start making a conscious effort to no longer go along with that path. And that's really the power behind what was discussed in that quote. Whether Rudolf Steiner said it or not, it doesn't even matter. There's so much power behind each of those paragraphs, though, and that's what needed to be discussed. But again, Callum, sending you lots of love. I appreciate you showing up tonight, and I think you brought up something important. There is a whole history about this individual that I have no clue about, nor do I really have the time to investigate. You know, I really chip away time in my schedule just to make these live streams be like open ended, so I don't really have to have a specific amount of time doing them. But I just thought, that set of paragraphs discussing the soul and how it could be one of many souls that we have that's being willfully, given away through these practices. And when you're a baby, of course, this is the most vulnerable position to be in because you have almost no physical choices. You're just you notice how when babies come to this earth, they just start crying and shit. They're like, fuck. Like, you notice that? They're like, oh, God. What the fuck am I doing here? I would be crying too. Like, imagine you were a god somewhere. You're just like a ball of light, like fucking just enjoying to not be in a physical prison, and then you just wake up in a physical prison being like, you would start crying too. You'd be like, take me back. We're just having fun. We're just having fun. Also, shout out to all the mothers out there. Seriously. Sending you all lots of love. Because I know all the mothers that are listening to this live stream, you're doing your part to get your kids out of the indoctrination system and help them unlock their superpowers as early as possible. And you're going to see your kids are incredible, And that was my same experience too. My mom didn't hold me back from my expression. She didn't hold me back from the art that I was putting out and what I wanted to say and what I wanted to think. But I was also one of those people that you couldn't stop me. So I would go to the grave before having another individual put power and dominion over me. That's just the way I've been my whole life. And at first, people called that stubborn. But what I noticed was once I really invited a love-based vibration into my life, meaning how could I be in power and empowered during this journey, but also do it with love? Don't do it while chopping down everyone and, stepping on other people. Like, how do I do it while maintaining homeostasis and bliss on the journey? And it's a lonely journey, of course, because in order to change the world, well, you need to play part of that game of the world. And, as we're advancing through these stages of the consciousness shift, we're seeing that it's really the teamwork and the community that is what's needed during a time like this. So we all go through our hermituitous stage, and I've been through that. I had to go through a stage of being hermituitous and not wanting to interact with the outside world because that was necessary to facilitate the growth, to realize my inner standing without any distractions. And what's beautiful, especially about the work that I have the privilege of doing, and I'm so grateful for, is I have a lot of people that show up and they send me emails and they'll say that, they were just going through some years of losing it all, like losing friends, losing family, losing money, losing, things they committed to. And they lost it all because they've become enlightened. They've started to awaken and become illumined to what was going on in this matrix. And that's the gravitational pull this all has. They show up to these live streams or they show up to one of the YouTube videos or whatever it is, and they see that this is the same language. We're speaking the same language. And it goes back to what I said before. This isn't the language of the mind, it's the language of the heart. And that language resonates beyond the boundaries of the communication of translation. We don't need to translate love. It just doesn't need to be. Of course, basic understanding of English is required to hear what we're saying. But at the same time, just in general, this is what's going to get us all together. Like, we're going to have to do it no matter what. And if it takes an individual learning another language to be able to understand someone else that they're vibrationally aligned with, then that is the journey you will take. Just like if you know nothing about technical analysis, that might be something you have to learn. It's a new language. Learning how to invest is a new language. Learning how to play the guitar is a new language. But if you're enticed by it and you're gravitating towards it, then do it. Don't get distracted on your journey. Just like everything that I was enticed by in my reality, I had to put all the distractions aside for a moment to hustle and to put all my energy and my attention into something that I was passionate about. We could all do it. We all have the same amount of hours in the day, and we need to use those hours wisely. It was really interesting. Somebody actually last week, they said something about, because we were talking a lot about using our attention and using our time and being more focused on that. And somebody brought up, but like, your live stream is 2 hours. And I think they tried making a little bit of a joke about it, but then we have to think like, this is 2 hours, and how many hours are in an entire week? What is this? 0.5% of the entire week that we're even awake, let alone asleep? So would we apply our attention to something that is vibrationally aligning with us, regardless if it takes 1 hour or 20 hours? If your answer is time-based, then you're clearly, struggling with the whole purpose of this anyways. When you're passionate and you vibrationally align with somebody, let's just say it's the person you love. Do you chip away 1 hour a day to focus on them? If you love to play guitar or you love to cook food, are you going to chip away 1 hour to follow your passion of becoming a chef? No. You do that shit fucking 10, 16, 20 hours a day. You sleep for 4 fucking hours. If you're passionate about something, time doesn't exist. If you're seeking knowledge and wisdom and whatever it is in your life, and I'm not even talking about this live stream, I mean just anywhere in life, if that's what you want to do, don't worry about time. That's where we get caught up in the first place. So again, it keeps coming back to this, like, we want to materialize everything, even our fucking passions. We want to materialize our passion? Come on. Like, do you feel what I'm saying? Like, when we love somebody, we don't look at them like, you're my 3 hours a day. No. It's so much more than that. When you start becoming enticed by a particular thing and you want to manifest abundance in your reality, you're going to start to see that it becomes timeless. And when you're enjoying the thing that you're doing, there is no time there. And that's the beauty of it, because it's in a state of bliss, timelessness. There's no yesterday, there's no tomorrow. So Liz W with the super chat. Oh man, it went away. She was saying something about the difference between quantum reality versus... I missed that. These questions are moving so quickly. Whoa. Okay. Either Ian or somebody else, can you remind me of that question that Liz asked? And then I'm going to clear out these other super chats just really quickly so that I could remember hers. Sorry about that. I really wish these wouldn't go away. I wish the comments would just stay, but you guys know how technology works. So, Mago, I appreciate you. Appreciate you supporting my work with the super chat. Much love. It says, sending you love and high vibes. Thank you for holding this space for us. Of course. This is what it's all about. I'm glad that you made it, and I'm hoping that you're having a beautiful weekend so far. It's a blast to be able to take some time to hang out with the family on Friday nights. It's one of my favorite things. Damn, I believe what Liz was asking had something to do with the difference between, like, perhaps free will and what's going on, like, with the Sorry, just these comments move too quickly. But we will definitely get back to your question for sure. B-Goat, the $10 super chat, all I have to say is you are a trip. You have opened up my world in so many ways. Much love and high vibes to you and the whole wolf pack. I appreciate you, brother. Sending you lots of love, and I hope you're having a beautiful week. Appreciate all your support, and we're grateful to have you here with us. I definitely am a trip. We should all be. Our personality should be. We're all an independent journey that will collide as one grand journey. Yeah, somebody mentioned something when I was discussing the spirit realm and playing around with it without the intent and without the understanding of how to work with that energy, because there's a big difference between being an energy worker and somebody who's testing the waters of playing around with this spiritual stuff, you know? So one of the things I'll never forget is I was listening to an interview by the Mars Volta, which is a band that I love. They're one of my favorite bands, if not in my top 5 favorite bands. But the band, the Mars Volta, they were writing one of their albums called The Bedlam and Goliath, and it's an incredible work of art. And while they were working on that album, they were actually playing around with a Ouija board. And just a fun little fact, Puerto Ricans and, you know, a lot of particular cultures, but let's just say Puerto Ricans, in particular, because this was their nationality, they don't mess around with Ouija boards because they don't know how to use them. And the elders know how to use them, but most of the elders have moved on. And it's the same thing that's going on with all original peoples to the lands. They have their elders have passed on, and throughout passing on, a lot of them have had and I say this with so much love and respect for these individuals for what they've had to go through, because the true story of the matter is devastating. But with that being said, the agenda of depopulation with the Aborigine and all across the world, I'm not just talking about Australia or the America, like I'm talking about the whole world, because this happened to the whole fucking world, okay? The wipeout agenda for them started with the elders, because the elders are the chiefs, the chieftain, the ones that were the empresses, because it's not only male, it's also feminine. Divine feminine was very important to these people. Wiping out those individuals wipes out the language, it wipes out the knowledge, the wisdom, the Gnosticism, all the importance of what's going on in the culture. So I bring this up because a lot of people now decide to not mess around with things like Ouija board and tarot and all of that. And I'm talking about wise people, by the way. Wise people choose to not play with that stuff because they don't know how to use it. So what I'm saying, and what I was saying earlier, is a lot of people are playing with tarot thinking they know how to use it, but they don't. And they're causing little fissures and gaps in their reality, and they don't even know they're doing it. So they have to learn how to become an energy worker first. Then you can fuck around with the crystals and the tarot and all that. Now, if you're somebody who just walks around with a crystal on you, or you like to have crystals, that's great and all. But when you start learning how to use that stuff, I'm just saying, before you get into it, really start studying what it is that you're working with, because the spirit realm doesn't care about your manifestations. It doesn't care about your materialistic, egoic bullshit. It doesn't care about that. It really does not. It wants you to work with it. And a lot of the spirit realm is trapped in the spirit realm, and it wants to come back here. That's what the terminology demon means. Okay? The demon wants to come back here, so it needs to be summoned And this is what these high-level elites are doing with their rituals on full moons and equinoxes and all this blood sacrifice shit they're doing. It's to bring in the power of spirit into them and channel it in them to make them a more powerful god. If you don't know what I'm talking about now, you should definitely not be playing with tarot because you're so far removed from what's going on here. So again, I'm not saying this to belittle. I'm not saying this to put people down. I'm saying this because it's the fucking clear pill. It's just the way it goes. You need to be an energy worker before you try to work with this stuff into the spirit realm. Or else you're fucking with something that you have no idea how it works. It's like water, right? You think about water. Water can give you hydration and water can drown you. When people play around with tarot and rods and tuning forks and crystals and all this stuff, they think of water, and in this analogy, as if the only property that water does is hydrate you. It's like you're thirsty, you want some water, you grab some water and drink it. People think that's what playing with tarot is. You're sadly mistaken, because that water you think is hydrating you could be drowning you. And now you see that it is quite different. It's so much deeper than we thought. Now, I know I made some jokes before about like yoga and like how people want to do it to have a big ass. Like, that was just a joke. You guys know what I meant by that. But what I'm saying is really know what you're working with, because there's an immense amount of power behind magic, and you can do it right. And where this all comes full circle with the Mars Volta and what I was talking about is this story, okay? And you could go watch this interview if you want. The Mars Volta, they were using a Ouija board to make the lyrics and to channel in the knowledge and the wisdom of the spirit realm to make this album called The Bedlam and Goliath. And when they did this, their studio flooded multiple times. The producer on the album died. They had all this destructive shit going on. They lost the tape reel that they were recording the whole album on, I think multiple times as well. So this is amazing, man. It's amazing when you start to see this exposure of what's really going on here. And when you read the lyrics of the Mars Volta and you see what's going on with it, you know these guys are highly enlightened. But now they had to learn why their mothers and grandmothers were telling them not to fuck around with the Ouija board. It's not because the Ouija board cannot be used for good. It's that they don't remember anymore how to use the Ouija board properly. So they're fucking around with something that they don't know how to control. Look into Dybbuk boxes, by the way. Dybbuk box. Go find out what that is, and you'll see another thing that is horrifying. So remember, yoga, pranayama, all of this shit could change your life. It could be the most amazing thing you ever do. Yoga could be the most amazing thing you ever do. Seriously, it could be a paradigm shift. It could also be something that you get passionate about and you make a business, and then you could start helping yourself financially. You could also help people around the world. I would never say something like it's a one-way street. You guys know me. All I'm trying to say is to protect people, because it's very important that we protect ourselves. When we start messing around with all this stuff that we think we know we're messing around with, it actually goes quite deep. And we're an extension of everyone. So if you're a yoga teacher and you're in that room teaching people yoga, you're playing with all of their energy, not just yours. You're playing with their energy. And when I say playing, I literally mean that. You have the decision if you want to play with it. How do you want to have fun? Do you want this to be a joyful experience where energy is colliding together to be something that could be creative, that could be like lifting your spirit, if you will? But yeah, I mean, it's just amazing how many people play with all this stuff and they have zero intent. They have no idea what they're doing. And then they start playing around with it. It's good for a minute, and then it starts going to shit. And then all this stuff starts going horrible for them. And they're like, what's going on? You know, you guys have probably heard of Moldavite. A lot of people blame Moldavite on this property. How it's like a very transitioning kind of energy where, like, if you are doing one thing, it'll set you on a completely different path. And like, yes, it's like, that's kind of what I'm talking about here. That's one of the things, but that's just a very, very quick example. I do want everyone to go look up Dybbuk boxes though, because that is just fucking incredible. How many people have messed around with those thinking it's a joke, and it's not a joke. Oh, Moorish Prince C7, I love you. He says, I think that movie was called A Dark Song. Yo, I think you're right. I think you're right. Sorry, guys, I don't normally do this, but we need to do this. Moorish Prince, you're a G. Yes, he's right. Wow. I can't play the trailer. I'll get a copyright strike. Let's go on good old Wikipedia. Yep. This is it. This movie is amazing. Everyone needs to go see this movie. This movie's beautiful. Because everything that I ever say in these live streams, it all gets summed up at the very, 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 very end of this movie. I had to work so hard to wake up to the most simple thing ever. It's called compassion and forgiveness. This movie will change your life. Because everything we've spoken about tonight comes back some way to this movie. So, Moorish Prince, you're a legend. I appreciate you for that super chat and supporting my work. Really means a lot to me. But furthermore, this movie, yes. Oh, it's so good. It's really so good. Got about 400 people up in here. Oh man, I love when people try telling you how to pronounce a word. If anyone wants to help somebody pronounce a word, then you're not listening to the words that they're speaking. You're hearing the words. There's a big difference. All right, let's move on. Ringo Stark says, I told Mercury to get bent. Oh man, that is so funny. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. Eat one meal a day. Yes, facts. Okay, let's move on. Much love, Jody. Take care. Callum D hit the nail on the head with the X of XRP is the Freemason symbol. Yes. And so, Callum, really what that X is showing you the projection of the black sun from below and the movement through the polar opening towards Polaris and the sun and moon in our first level, the first level of this magnetic ionic realm that is infinite and forever expanding. So it creates this X logo through the way that the light is projecting through it. And that is exactly why around the more northern, countries at least on this Mercator projection garbage scam map that we have, but just to give people a quick visual of what's going on here. When you're closer to that polar opening, which is the light emitting through that area is the black sun, this is creating what's called the aurora borealis, the northern lights. And they tell you that, oh, it's the ionosphere and the this, that. It's like, yes, the ionosphere is actually one of the most missing things when it comes to like standard narrative driven sciences, especially like when it comes to the stuff that NASA gives us. But yes, the magnetosphere and the ionosphere are creating lots of optical illusions that have to deal with bending, the refraction of light, so many other things. But yes, that intersection of the light coming from below, as above, so below, and this reflection on the firmament, and that being the first layer of that whole picture that I'm trying to draw with this explanation, it is creating that X. So it's really incredible how all of that comes to fruition. And if you were to remove some of that X, you end up with what looks like the compass and ruler, which again, within that is the G. And that is the interpretation of what's going on here. You have Sola Negro, then you have Luna and Sol. And this is basically the realm. Okay, let's move on. Didn't they make a movie about organ harvesting? They made a movie about this. I forgot the name of it, but I love the way they made this movie because it makes the guy seem like he's on point, and then at the very end, it like shows him basically being a crazy person. But I forgot the name of this movie. It's on Netflix, and I believe it's also an Irish movie. I believe it's a movie that's filmed with an Irish cast. If anyone knows the name of that movie, whoa. Because it was like regular Netflix. Yeah. But if you're going to have to watch any two movies, A Dark Song, way more life-changing. Callum, love your high vibrations. Send you lots of love, and I appreciate all of the things you've mentioned tonight. Oh no. Yeah, somebody brought up that gross practice they do. I won't even say it. I won't even say it. It's not the thing. How's everyone doing tonight? We've made it, I think, it's about 2 hours almost. Probably wrap it up soon. Imelda Diaz, sending you lots of love. Sheen Andre. Tiger, appreciate you. Brian says the cure for insulin need would be allowing your pancreas to just operate on its own and to stop creating issues regarding what you consume, which is the standard diets that most people eat. And I really, really don't want to get into food because every single time I do, it becomes a shit show in the chat. And I'm like low key thinking about just opening up a whole coaching membership for when it comes to like just the truth about what's going on with consumption, because wow. Just so much to say about all that stuff, and every time we start to get the ball rolling and people really want to dive into these ideas, it becomes so just darkened by people's emotion And, this obsession with diet, it's even in the word it, but people are obsessed with it. But I feel like so many people have reached out to me in regards to this. I've cured diabetes for 2 people already. And I've gotten people in their 60s and 70s to cut their amount of medications in half, essentially reducing their medical bills by 60-70% per year. So it's facts. And it's just so hilarious when you try giving out this stuff like in live streams and people just attack because they don't want to accept the basics. But that's kind of why I'm thinking about going down that path, because of what I've helped people with regarding that particular side of things. The same thing goes with like the mudras and the sun gazing and the fasting and all the techniques for breaking fasts and moving into fasts, and like where your body's at versus how you should go about fasting, all of that stuff. It's like, I would love to get into it. It's one of the things I'm the most passionate about, but it's nearly impossible in a public forum. So it has to be something that's done, where there can be focus and attention. But we'll see how that goes in the future. Maybe that'll be something that I'll open up to due to the interest. I just know there's so much interest for it because I get so many emails about it. Just reading through some questions, comments. Let me see if I say this. Kinda Bam Crochet. Sending you lots of love. Appreciate you. Planet 702. I, on behalf of everyone else here, support you and your journey towards making your cooking conspiracy theory channel. We'd love to see that come to fruition. I think everyone should start their own channel. Like, everyone should start voicing, their truths with the world. Go for it. Don't like wait. If you have some truths to share, go for it. Do your thing. But just know the building phase is going to come with a lot of, you got to be real, genuine from day one. Be 100% yourself. The problem with most content creators and most people who start channels is they pretend. They build an audience and then they start fucking falling apart emotionally because they can never be themselves. And when they want to be themselves, that group of people that's been following them, that's been subscribed to them, isn't used to that version of themselves because they've been an actor the whole time. So, that is a huge thing that I see with a lot of content creators, where they're basically dying in the fact that they started out their entire work by not living. This pretending and theatrics of what social media tends to be will dig people into the deepest holes, especially if it becomes popular. That's why these really high-level influencers, their life is it's in decay, because they're never themselves. They're never true. They're playing Halloween, They're putting on a costume and their makeup and all this stuff just to show you this facade. And I feel bad for those entities because I know what that could do to you as a creator. But it is so much better to just be 100% yourself, fearless, ruthless. Get on this microphone, speak your truth. Don't fucking worry about what anyone thinks. Share the vibration that you're at, and you're going to learn throughout the journey. Like, maybe if you're an aggressive person and you're very egoic, well, then it's going to be difficult for you to grow a following that vibes with that. But maybe that could be your form of therapy in that sense. You know, there's a lot of people in this realm right now that are struggling because all they want is attention. And that is why they have emotional outbursts when they're on the internet. You know, they're the commenters, the ones that are on Yelp leaving bad reviews. They're the ones that are just being a troll. Those individuals, they're suffering from a deep, deep trauma. And because they suffer from their lack of being able to create or to showcase something they create because they're insecure and they live within that fear, their only way to project that energy and to just get that energy off their shoulders is through the comments section. You know, this type of individual is suffering. They're a wilted flower moving towards the wintertime. And guess what? They don't need to be that. They don't. They just choose to. So for anyone out there that's a creator and you're scared of sharing your creation, don't be. Do it. Do it ruthlessly. But don't be fake. Don't be fucking fake. Be 100% genuine while you're doing it. And that goes for people in all art forms, all walks of life, whatever it is. So many people want to do something right now because right now is a very transitional time in the world. We just went through the pandemic. The pandemic has superseded. For some reason, it's gone away. Now all people want to talk about is war and one celebrity slapping another celebrity. I mean, it's psyop after psyop. It's pretty much infinite. And the ones who are the strongest, most empowered, most enlightened beings, their specialty is not getting lost in the sauce. Their specialty is being able to know when something is a psyop and when to offer their attention to what. This is all about balancing our attention. You know, I'm going to speak about this a lot in that Great Awakening collaboration that I do with Coach JV. Like, it's our most valuable currency besides love is attention. And when you're going to be utilizing your attention to create, do that from your soul. Like, do that from your heart. Don't worry about, you know, the what ifs and what could go wrong. You know, greatness is those who seek great reward from great risk. It's a requirement. It's a necessity to risk in order to get rewarded. So hopefully that allows people to tap in, you know, take that last couple of minutes of me talking about that and listen to that again when you wake up tomorrow, first thing in the morning. You know, fucking timestamp that part of the video. I want you to listen to that when you wake up, and I want you to remind yourself as much as possible, especially if you're somebody who's on the cusp of sharing something with the world, or you want to start your own business or whatever it is that you're doing. Maybe you want to become an online coach. You want to help people with, you know, nutrition, or you want to become a yoga teacher, or whatever it is, like whatever it is that you want to do. You know, it's the fundamental practice of being you, and be you ruthlessly. It's really important, because then if it starts to fall apart, if you start to fail, at least you did it with 100% genuine. You know, you weren't pretending to make it all come to pass. And if you do become successful through pretending and being fake, well, guess what? They're all going to figure you out eventually. All the people that love you, that think you're so great, that, you know, worship you and follow you, they're eventually going to figure out that you're a fucking fraud. And then you're going to have to deal with that. So it's just not the way to go. And so many people right now, they're compromising. You know, people are compromising with the COVID shit. People are compromising with the vaccine shit. People are compromising with all this stuff in this matrix. And what I always tell people is the more and more you compromise, your higher self is there every single fucking second that you're not being true to yourself. And it's sitting there being like, just shaking its head, you know? Your higher self's just shaking its head. Its wings are folded back. And every time you stay true to yourself, every time you are doing something with a 100% genuine, you know, just ruthless delivery, 100% true to yourself, your higher self is fucking planning all the greatness that follows those statements and those actions that you are making. Wings out, Titan-like. All the beauty and all the freedom and all the abundance lies in how true you are to yourself. And through you, that word, that accomplishment channels, and it will reverberate and affect every single entity around you, including the animal kingdom, including Mother Nature. This isn't all just about what humans think about you guys. I know that might be too out there for people. But if you're feeling down and you go into a forest and you're still feeling down, the trees, the flowers, everything that surrounds you is going to be like tapping you on the head, being like, hey, idiot, stop thinking about yesterday. Stop thinking about tomorrow. Be here with me now. The tree, the flower, the squirrel, the fucking deer, all of them, the rocks, they're surrounding you saying, hey, stop being so fucking caught up in everything but now. Be present. Be here with us because we know that truth. That's why nature is so beautiful and so grounding, because it's there and we don't even notice it. It's like, you know, that saying, stop to smell the roses. There's a lot of fucking like wisdom within that. What people do is they bring their stress with them everywhere they go. They bring their failure with them everywhere they go. It's like somebody gets into an argument with somebody and then they blame it on the fucking high gas prices. Stop that. And a lot of people aren't going to be real with you the way that I'm being real with you right now. They ain't. Like, the reason they're not is because everyone is so soft and sensitive. Like, even when I started talking about this, I see like 70 people just left, you know? And that tells me that's always how it goes. When you start spreading real truth, you start to see like it has a really big impact on people. And the light is too bright. It hurts to stare at. Like when you're staring at the sun, you could only do it for so long because that light that gives you life, that allows all the fruits and vegetables and beauty in this world to exist in the first place, it could burn your skin. It could blind you. That's how it always goes. And again, it's not the truth. It's not universal truth. It's my truth. But it's the same things like this that I say, that I see a bunch of people leave. Those are the same comments that I get in an email after the live stream of somebody being so incredible. Just saying like, oh my God, I needed to hear that. Thank you so much for saying that. So I know that's how it works, because it's always the most powerful word that hurts the majority and helps the ones who are out there seeking. Because it was the same way with me. I was very seemingly stubborn when I was growing up, and I would always hear wisdom that I never wanted to pay attention to. And once I finally stopped being so egoic and so focused on me thinking that I knew it all, and actually got away from my mind and into my heart, I was able to actually translate these truths from other people and to see how it could influence me on my path towards the better me, towards aligning with my higher self. And there was so much beauty in letting go of all of that. We always think we know. It's funny, the word know. Just to analyze it the way that we were analyzing other word spells earlier. Do we really know anything, though? Again, this universal language we have, it doesn't have words attached onto it. The words are merely just spells. And when we become illumined to this basic thing, then we get to figure out how the words that we forecast, the words that we project out to the species, to the animal kingdom, to Mother Nature, etc., it has this conversation with all things. And in that conversation is where you notice the oneness in all. And in this realization of that oneness is where you tap into that infinite consciousness, and you can start to extract and extrapolate all of the knowledge and the wisdom from everything in this reality, not just other humans. And that basic thing, I know it doesn't sound basic, but it actually is. It's the realization of it that's so difficult. But once one realizes it, they see how basic it actually is. It's part of our code. It's like the JavaScript. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . Okay, so Liz W, sending you lots of love, says yes. Okay, Liz. So I think I know your question now. Your question was about quantum reality versus coded reality. And then you also mentioned manifesting versus everything is coded. So, yes. Also, Tiger, I really love your energy. This person, Tiger, is just being very kind to everyone. And I love that. But, Liz, much love to you. I really appreciate you supporting my work. It means a lot. That's a great question. You know, it's a question that, or it's a concept that me and Logan talk about all the time. Like whenever me and Logan get on a phone call, it's, you know, also shout out to brother Logan, Decode Your Reality. Go check out his channel if you want to learn more about this reality through the code. His work is top notch. I absolutely love what he's doing. I love him, and I think that we're overdue for a live stream together. But he talks about the code in a way that it's, you know, I believe some people might have a hard time wrapping their head around. And throughout more and more conversations with him, I definitely see where he's coming from. And now that I've played around with the code at the depths that I've played with it in, I could totally see, you know, there is very strange, you know, connections here when it gets to the gematria and the numbers at the deepest levels. You start to see that it is all coded actually, and that there might not be much control and intervention. But also, Liz, is it not to say that realizing this code, for instance, those who become illumined to gematria and numerology, is it not to say that it was part of those individuals' paths already? Like, most people who are completely asleep, they don't just wake up with gematria. Like, that's like the last thing that they get to. I mean, that takes a while to get to a place where you start learning about the letter code, the alphanumeric code tied to letters and tied to letters. I mean, you know, most of us start out with a sequence. Like, you know, some people woke up with 9/11 and then that brought them to looking into the moon landing and like whatever. We all learn at our own pace. But most of the time people don't just go from like completely asleep to like, oh yeah, gematria, you know? But with that being said, when you start learning how to decode and you start actually playing around with it a little bit yourself, or you become a little bit more sophisticated and actually have something to tie it back to, for instance, like the elements on the periodic table or the mythologies. And again, if you look at the names of all of the periodic table stuff, it's pretty much going back to these Greek words and the mythologies. You know, like helium, which is the second element on the periodic table, is named after Helios, the sun god. So again, the way that they were able to first distinguish what helium was through the corona of the sun, like coronavirus, you know? So anyways, it's just amazing when you start having some base knowledge to back up all these numbers, to actually know the meaning of the numbers. So once you start learning more and more about that, it gets so deep and so deep and so deep that it's pretty much, you can't refute the organic code. You just can't. You could try as much as you would like all day to assume that there's some nefarious group out there that's controlling everything specifically to the code, but you're going to eventually find out that it is so much deeper than that. And perhaps all of these apex predators are just in tune at such a high vibrational frequency. And again, when I say high vibrational frequency, it's not to say that it's a loving frequency. Remember, the crown chakra, this isn't about love. Like, being enlightened, being truly awakened is not about fear and greed or love and hate. It's about neutrality. It's about allowing all the things. Okay, so when we really, really get up there into the deep depths of what's going on here in our reality, you start to see, you become less bothered by the horrible shit that's going on, and you become less excited by the quote unquote good shit that's going on, because you just become neutral in that journey. You go from being excited and sad all the time to just being like, oh, yep, of course it's that way. Of course, all of World War II was complete bullshit. Of course, in World War One, they were using fucking, rubber bullets. You start to learn all this shit because you don't have judgment and you're not so emotionally tied to it anymore. So, with that being said, these apex predators that are ruling the world, whether we want to believe that they are coordinating and calculating every single thing by a code, that's not really me to argue. But what I can say is now that I've been on both sides of it, where I've learned how to decode at a very high level, and I've also spoke with people that know how to decode at a high level, and I've played around with enough of this stuff now from a very neutral perspective, where I've put in the hard work into the Gnosticism to actually know the backbone behind what it is that I'm talking about in the first place, I start to see that there is no way that an individual of human origin could possibly be changing and altering and manipulating every single aspect of what's going on here. It's just, it is what it is, and this goes for all the sports, all the killings, all of that. Yes, it is ritual. Yes, the Super Bowl outcome was a ritual. Yes, young Dolph getting murdered was a ritual. Like, yes, it's all, but when we think of a ritual, it's not as basic as just killing someone on a specific day for whatever reason. It's because it's a magical ceremony. And this ceremony is using the individual as a vessel. And this vessel harnesses an immense amount of soul. And they need to extract that soul from that influencer, from that celebrity, from that famous person or whatever, the same way they do that to all of you guys. So when this recent event happened, when Will Smith smacked Chris Rock or whatever, that took a lot of energy from the fucking planet. The whole human race gave that thing energy. So the same way they ritualize someone getting smacked is the same way they ritualize sports, is the same way they ritualize. But what you start to see is whether it's all theatrics, whether it's all completely make-believe, that's not what actually matters. Proving that that was done by design isn't really the point here. Because at the end of the day, it's just stealing energy from you anyways. When you take your eyes off these icons, off of these false titans, and start to focus on yourself, you unlock your power, you start to notice your code, and you could actually change something about your life. And I'm not just talking direct, I'm not talking just at you, Liz, I'm speaking to everyone here. So yes, it's fun to figure out whether the Jesuits are controlling the fucking soccer scores, but does it actually matter? No. And if you think it matters, then you have something really troubling you have to work through in your life. Because the last time I checked, when I wake up in the morning and I get dressed and I eat food, it's not like Anthony Fauci is sitting in my fucking kitchen cooking me up breakfast. These Jesuit shills have nothing to do with my reality. These celebrities don't have anything to do with my reality. Sports has nothing to do with my reality. Crypto has nothing to do with my reality. None of this shit actually matters. It's just part of our experience. And when we become neutral to it all, we could play the game accordingly. Play the game, don't let the game play you, in the words of the great Prince. And when we let this shit play us, when we hand the controller over to these apex predators, that's how the game keeps going sour over and over and over and over again. So if we want to actually maintain posture and have a little bit of backbone in this game, if you will, this thing we call Grand Theft Auto, it's about coming together and working together as a unit. We need to work together. Because if we look at 0.001% of the population, how they're able to actually influence to therefore maintain position over all of the human species, it's proven that they are the most loyal family, they are the most loyal people on Earth. And we can make fun of them and call them names, call them lizards, call them whatever the fuck. But remember, the reason they keep winning and we keep sitting down here at the bottom is because we have yet to notice that loyalty that they have. If we woke up and actually noticed that we can decide to be loyal to each other as a species, we will start to see how we can regain power and actually bring this huge slave system to an end, where we no longer need to worry about all this shit, like what's going on in sports. All of that stuff is to suck away energy in the first place. So if you like sports, great, watch them, go play them, be physical. It's important to treat your rental vehicle with, treat it well, take care of yourself. But if you're sitting there screaming at a television and, you're mad because you lost a bet on whatever team lost, then you're just an extension of the energy harvesting experiment, and you decided to play that game. So you need to be able to remove yourself from that emotional connectivity to it if you're going to be a part of it. Otherwise, you just need to train, It's like life is like stepping into a dojo, and there's masters here in this dojo. Like, I woke up to my mastery. I'm here. And now that I'm here, like, people step into my dojo. And I'm like, the experience of this reality now has a much different effect on me because I'm not letting these apex predators get my energy anymore. And I'm helping the human species to regain their own energy and basically reroute their attention onto shit that serves them instead of the other way around. And if we could do this, then this is how we create the numbers that are necessary to facilitate ending this spiritual warfare that we're going through on this realm at this time. The reason we're in this darkness is because the ones who hold the light don't want to shine that light. So I'm here, and I'm doing my part. And all I seek out of this whole experience of this, what we're doing here, is to create that light amongst all of us, bring that together, and make change for once. Instead of pointing fingers at these elites, instead of blaming them, instead of whatever. And you don't even need to point fingers at the sheep either. You don't need to be mad at all the NPCs. I don't want to be low vibe. I don't want to call them sheep, but you know what I'm saying. You don't need to be, they're not your enemy. Like, they're not either. I know that's hard to accept. We all are looking for some enemy here. But just remember, the only enemy that truthfully exists is you. You're your own enemy. You eventually have to give in to it, just like Neo gave in to the fact that Agent Smith wasn't somebody that he should keep fighting. You're going to eventually have to let go. You eventually have to let go. And it's that resistance towards the inevitable. You notice how in that movie, in the Matrix movie, Agent Smith keeps on saying that it's inevitable. It's facts. It's just basic. We want to have enemies because that's something that we can measure ourselves against. You know that word measurement? Like when we're measuring how far something is, if it's kilometers or miles or inches. The word measurement is measure men. Measure men. And ment or mentis is mind. Because this is about measuring minds, measuring men, putting us on scales. Okay? We are not on scales. We're all one. We're not greater than, we're not better than, we're not any of that shit. We're just in a dream. And in this dream, we're suffering from amnesia. And some people, which I sincerely believe is the people who are finding what I'm sharing, these truths, through this vibrational frequency that I'm broadcasting, we came to this realm with antivirus software, and it is impossible to indoctrinate forever. You went through your stage of indoctrination, you broke through, and in that breakthrough, you remembered who you always were. And through that remembering, you're starting to see the frequency bandwidth that emits from you is so vibrationally like impossible to understand by the average person that most people cannot be in your circle anymore. You're going to lose friends, you're going to lose family, you're going to lose a bunch of people, but what you're going to gain is a family. You just have to go out there and find them. So that's the mission, if there needs to be one. I hate to use words like that, but just to use the English language and bring an idea together. George Mendez sending you lots of love, my brother. Says, what do you think of DMT and how can we get rid of carb sugar addiction? Well, first of all, when we think of sugar, first we need to discuss a little bit about the backbone of what sugar actually is. Are we talking about sucrose? If we're talking about isolated sucrose, like white sugar, the white sugar was created by the Chinese to be an anti-venom. So when you got stung by a scorpion or a bee or anything that would create some sort of anaphylaxis or something like that, that's what sugar was actually designed for at the genesis of the idea. Now, sugar cane is an incredibly healthy food. Chewing on sugar cane is an incredibly healthy thing because that comes from Mother Nature. That's natural. Now, when we overly process sugar, it becomes a medicine. It actually becomes something that is a medicine. But the issue here is that they're hiding this white sugar in food. Now, there's a big difference between what is considered to be the food of a human being and medicine for human beings. And this is where it gets super deep. And this is where, like, again, it gets hard to really talk about this shit because people take it, they're like, he's calling sugar good. And it's like, no, you're selecting the words you want to listen to and you're emotional. So everything I just said right there was fact. Sugar in fructose is the human food. We are designed as fruit eaters. So sugar is not the problem. It's just how specific are we talking here? White sugar was designed as an anti-venom. So it has a use case. It has a purpose. Now, when you're just eating fucking candy all day, the candy isn't necessarily destroying you. It's the digestion that's the problem. Now, most people that are eating candy, they're also drinking sodas, which isn't just all about the sugar. It has a bunch of highly acidic properties in it that your gut microbiota can't deal with. It'll create inflammation, and you'll start to have, lots of issues with your overall digestion of all the solid food you're eating. And most people that drink soda and eat candy, they're not eating fucking salads. They're consuming lots of overly processed foods to go along with that. So if we're speaking about specifically sugar addiction, it's not really the issue here. Like, the sugar is the good part, it's the other things that are coming along for the ride holistically, So I would just tell people, do some research deeper into what's going on in regards to digestion and perhaps step away from looking at macronutrients, because macronutrients are the most useless part of discussing consumption. And that's why when we talk normal food or diet related conversations, a majority of people want to talk about macronutrients, which is fats, carbs, proteins, because they're at the most basic part of the whole thing. When we talk about fat, protein, carbohydrates, that's the most loaded idea because each one of those things is within all the other things. And they're rating it based on a system of burning it and seeing how much is left over, which again, the body doesn't actually work that way. So the whole scientism system behind thinking about things like sugar and, fat and protein, it's just ridiculous because it doesn't matter what you're eating based on numbers that a laboratory created and put on the back of the nutrition facts on your food. It has to deal with how does your body absorb, utilize, and actually get rid of the product that you put in you. The human organism is designed as a first in, first out system. It is a pipeline of waters. So you're a liquid being that is designed to eat liquid. And if you actually start going deeper and deeper and deeper, you'll learn that you're designed for the waters. You're not designed for solid food eating. So that's why the foods that are the easiest to digest are purely water itself. And then that's where it starts, that's where people really start like losing it. Because they're like, I can't eat this, I can't eat. It's like, no, I'm not telling you what to eat. I'm just telling you the truth. So there's tons of things that I still eat that aren't purely just like cucumbers and grapes, but I know how to finesse the system now because I've practiced all this stuff and I've done all this research. And not only have I done this research, I've tried it on myself. And I know what brings my body to the highest vibrational frequency, and I know what brings me to my lowest, most sedentary, useless state, and that is all by food. So food, or what you consume, is what you are made of. And from there, I mean, you start to see that the more liquid your diet becomes, the more light, the more airy, the more, energetic, the more able you are. And the less likely you are to store or to feel dis-ease or disease. And that is the beauty about simplifying things and not overthinking. And the overthinking comes when people have the conversation about protein, carbs, and fat, because they're looking at things based on macronutrients, and that's the least important factor. And it's not even the micronutrients that really matter at all either. It's the vibrational frequency of what it is that you consume. Just like your thoughts. The higher vibration your thoughts are, the higher vibration your soul is, your whole experience is. Well, the higher vibration your food is, well, the higher vibration you will be. It's very simple. And people want to make it more complex because of their tongue. The taste of things is what gets them towards their grave. Your tongue is the shovel towards your casket. That'll be the last thing I say about food. Basically, we dig our own graves with our addiction to this idea of consumption. Okay, just passing through some final things. Yes, P Bucko 80. Dybbuk box. Definitely look into it. Tiger. It's funny. And like, again, like, I don't ever want to tell people what to do, what to eat, how to think, any of that. Like, really, people ask questions, and I've just noticed that it's a very polarizing conversation, and some people have amazing questions to ask, and they really seek, the truths. And when those conversations come up, I mean, it's way better now. It used to be much worse, but it's something that I think would probably be better for a private, maybe sometime in the future there could be like a Q&A that we do that's private on Discord for just people who want to talk about food. And a light diet, a diet that's based on what's the overall place to be with it all. Lisa, 100% true. Just reading some people's comments. What are you talking? Dr. Sunny Joker and Dillip are having fun. Raleigh, over there in Australia, I'm sending you lots of love. Mr. C, I appreciate you. Appreciate you. Paolo Di Lorenzo, sounds like you're doing amazing stuff. Feel free to send me your music whenever you would like. My email could be found in several places. Okay. From dust to dust. I'm going from water to water. That's my choice. Water's above the water's above the dojo. I love that. That's my favorite thing that James True always says. Dojo Earth. It's so good. I would love to connect with James True sometimes. We need to reach out to that guy somehow. Ray Love. Ray Love says not just rubber bullets but inflatable tanks. Yo, they duped humanity so hard on World War One, man. That was like, oh my god. They should have rolled credits after that thing. Like executive produced by Steven Spielberg's father or some shit. You know what's funny though? Like, Star Wars was more true. Like, Star Wars was a documentary, man. I'll just say that. Star Wars was a documentary. Shit, I probably shouldn't have said that about World War One because I said something about rubber bullets in World War One, and now everyone's like, "Can you explain it?" Literally, your entire history is fabricated. We had a great reset around this exact time where humanity was reestablished, repopulated around the realm. And during this repopulation, they essentially let everyone fend for themselves and figure shit out. And there was an immense amount of orphanages when they reopened this realm, and they didn't know what the fuck to do with all these babies because they were hoarding all the babies in underground tunnels before the event happened, and that's just the way it is. It's a fast event too, and like, you know how they say Jesus died and was resurrected 3 days later, and then they talk about the 3 days of darkness. This 3 days of darkness thing is no joke, man. It's the reset. And during this reset, that's exactly what they're doing. They're planning for these big apocalyptic moments. But go check out some of the work of Flat Earth British. Absolutely incredible content. John Levi is another one of them that has amazing content regarding resets and the realm and basically all this architecture that we have no idea how it was built. We have no proof of the building of it. All we're left with is the remnants of it, and we don't even know how to actually use the technology of these buildings. All the cathedrals, churches, skyscrapers, all that shit that's around you that we think are buildings are actually technology that can interact with the etheric realm. Even our body can interact with this realm as well. And this is why when 9/11 happened, a lot of people woke up. You weren't waking up to the fact that 9/11 was an inside job. You were waking up because the ritual of those two towers coming down and that technology and that energy that was severed between the Christ consciousness grid and your body was now it was like shocked with electricity. You were under hypnosis. So the reason why these big events are quote unquote waking people up, you're not being woken up. You're just you were under a hypnosis. It's this technology that they're using, it's to keep humanity in a zombie-like state. And that's what that ritual of 9/11 was all about. It was to see who is the one. And that's why, like, I remember when I started this channel about a year ago, I asked people around this same time, around April, I said, I want you guys to leave your red pill moment in the comments. And like 80 to 80, probably 90% of people said 9/11. And we really didn't have the ability to talk deeply on that ritual and like why, because there was just a different focus at that time. But we've scattered those truths in red pill episodes and, of course, in live streams. But yeah, the reason why you quote unquote woke up is because you were under hypnosis, and those buildings and the whole ritual of the two towers and the energy going to Tower 7, which is the 117 or 711, and then all that energy going to the pentagon or the pentagram. This is magic. It's a ritual. Watch this movie Dark Song that we were talking about, and you'll know exactly what the hell I'm talking about. Okay? Tower 1, Tower 2, and Tower 7 is the Trinity. Okay? That Trinity energy goes to that pentagram. That pentagram is the protection of it. It protects that energy so they can use it for their overall ritual. And it's funny how that entire experience, they were talking about weapons of mass destruction. You know what the weapon is? It's keeping y'all asleep. That's what the weapon is. There isn't no nukes. That's all a hoax too. It's all bullshit. Nuclear energy is the cleanest energy we have. It's a scam to call it bad and to say it's used for weapons. But they do everything inverted. It's all the opposite. So they come around talking about how a guy named Osama bin Laden, come on now. Literally, I remember CNN interviewed this man when he was in a cave, and then they tried telling us that they didn't know where he was. It's like, bitch, you're interviewing the guy. What do you mean you don't know where he is? I remember that. And I'm sitting there trying to tell people, I'm like, you don't see what I'm seeing right now? You guys are under a fucking spell, bro. Wake up. But they can't. They can't because they're under hypnosis. And you woke up from one of your stages of that hypnotic drift off. And the same thing happened with the C word. The C word was the coronavirus, the corona, the crown chakra. The virus is on the pineal and the corona, the crown. And those of you that have this antivirus software that we've been talking about the whole time, you can't be fucked with. So you're an impenetrable force. And that's why to you, the ones around you who are wearing masks and sleepwalking and not having a fucking clue about the truth, it's because they're under a deep state of hypnosis. And it's not their fault. That's what they were brought here to do. Because I know that when I say these things, you guys are going to think about people in your life that you love that are like this. And I don't mean to offend you, but it just is what it is. We could either accept that truth or we could fight against it and hope so much for this illumination to happen for all the people we love, but it's just not going to happen. Those people came here and they didn't have that antivirus software, and they're going to have to, they could do a lot of work. They could work as much as they would like. But in the great words that we shared here. It's going to be very, very difficult. This sentence, with such a V, you can easily make the etheric body loose in the physical body. That's very important, the way that he put that together. Once the etheric body is detached, the relationship between the universe and the etheric body would become extremely unstable, and man would become an automaton, for the physical body of man must be polished on this earth by spiritual will. Mic drop, dude. So important. All right, my beautiful family, I'm going to read up some last comments. Go watch A Dark Song tonight. I'm probably going to check it out too if I have a little bit of time while I'm drifting off to sleep. I try to never watch anything while I'm going to sleep. I always cut myself off about 30, 45 minutes before I go to sleep, and I listen to solfeggio frequencies, and no light in the room, no light around me, and I try to go off into that sleep state in bliss. But this will definitely be something that I'll at least start after this live stream concludes. So Matt asks a good question. He says, so if we got these V's without consent, what can we do to build the etheric body back? Remember what I said, everyone. I said this very, very, at the beginning. We came here with antivirus software. You are not this body, okay? Your soul cannot be penetrated. They can do whatever they want. You've become cognizant to these truths, so now every decision you make moving forward is something you're aware of. When you were a baby, when you were here, and you made it through all those trials and tribulations to get here, and you were able to tap into this immense amount of knowledge and wisdom, clearly there was something protecting you, and that thing was not the physical realm. That thing was your higher spirit, your true soul. Some people are here to just be merely a currency for these quote-unquote apex predators. Perhaps it's confusing for a lot of people, not you, Matt, or not anyone in particular, but it's hard to explain these ideas because a lot of us got the V when we were born. It happened against our will. But also, we're clearly experiencing a different path than most. And in that journey, we're starting to see that there's a very immense force field around us. It protects us from all of the common ailments that the average person suffers from. It's that ability to tap in and remember the power, to not let anything harm you. Because Matt, you asked an awesome question and you noticed the way I reacted. And one of the things that I brought up in the past, and I feel like it'll have a really important impact on answering your question, would be, I get this question all the time about 5G and people saying, oh, well, I live near these 5G towers. What can I do? It's very similar to the question of what do I do if I got the V when I was born? It's like, imagine you have a job and you live in a big city and there's nothing that you could do about this 5G. Like, that's it. You're surrounded by it. Well, guess what? You are aware of this, but will you let it hurt you? You get to make a choice. And I wake up every day and I let nothing bother me. I let nothing affect me. Or if it starts to affect me, I at least become humble and admit it and say to myself, oh, you know what, Jordan, this has been bothering you lately and you need to be aware of that. You need to fucking face that. You need to become aware of what you're bothered by, of what's triggering you, of what you're fearful of, and you need to change that. I have that dialogue with myself all the time. I admit that. It's necessary to. None of us are perfect. None of us are completely on the ball. We're going to have moments where we slip up, where things get in our way, where this matrix gets the best of us. And we at least have to notice it, to at least recognize it. So if we could recognize the immense amount of power we have, don't let the 5G get in your way. Don't let it bother you. And people that are like, oh, but what are we, there's nothing we can do. It's going to give me this. It's going to give me that. Well, you get to select if you want it to do that to you. There was literally a study back in the day. I forgot the name of the study, but it was peer reviewed, and it was in a setting where they were actually taking note of what was going on here. It wasn't, some conspiracy is what I'm trying to say. And they had a panel of women, and these women were all allegedly diagnosed with cancer, and they were giving them pills for chemotherapy. Chemotherapy pills, by the way, okay? And half of the group was given a placebo, and all of the women lost their hair. They were eating sugar pills. It was because they diagnosed them and told them that they were giving them chemotherapy pills, which they've spellcasted them into believing that the chemo will make them lose their hair. Guess what? They thought themselves into losing their fucking hair. That's the power of the mind. The same thing goes with the physical body. If you want to become a master of the physical body, then you start getting into yoga, you start getting into mudras, and you start getting into pranayama. And if you study the work of Wim Hof was injected with a virus, literally injected, meaning a syringe that had a quote-unquote viral disease in it, was put into his bloodstream, and he used a breathing technique to essentially create an autonomic nervous response to it, where he could control the way that proliferated through his bloodstream and actually stop it from damaging him. This is a technique that's free on the internet for people to learn. So why do they want you taking vaccines if you could just do breathing techniques for free and reverse any fucking virus you get? Because that's free. But at the same time, what I'm trying to say here is don't let this 5G and this V and all this shit, if you are aware of all this stuff and you feel like, you have a little bit of fear towards it, there is a cheat code out there. So all you have to do is learn the magic. And then that really brings this whole conversation full circle, because we talked a lot about magic today. The mind is an immense power horse. It could do whatever. It could spellcast yourself into whatever level of disease. You could think yourself to death if you wanted to, legitimately. This is where manifestation is such a beautiful thing, because you could use it to gain abundance. And people think it's like hokey doke stuff, but then they start practicing it and they start tapping into the frequency of it, and they see it's an incredible power to have. But anyways, we've been going for like 3 hours. I know I could keep going forever. I have so much love for all of you. I wish you all a beautiful weekend. Zach made a very important comment. Shivambu. Yes, sir. That's another incredible practice, but very difficult for most. But again, if somebody wants to reverse some issues going on in their hardware, that is something they could absolutely utilize. I'm just trying to read a couple more. All right. I should probably move on. Next live stream will be this Friday coming up, so next week. And then this weekend on Sunday, I'll be releasing my next podcast for the Red Pill podcast in Patreon. So anyone who's part of the Mastermind community over on Patreon, it's the tagged comment in this chat. Be releasing that this Sunday, so then I'll be giving everyone a market update and talking about some altcoins and kind of discussing how the middle of this month's looking as we move into the full moon. So again, that's the time that we talk about a little bit more crypto stuff whilst here in our live streams, we try to stay away from that stuff and focus on the world at large. So I really appreciate every single one of you. It's beautiful to see 300 people, 400 people most of the time this week, and hopefully next week we have similar turnout. Loved all the chat going on here tonight, and wishing you all a beautiful rest of your night. Much love, all of y'all.